Hey guys, so welcome back to the latest episode of Growing Dental Practice podcast. I am your co-host Hazel from Lift Social, and I'm here with my amazing co-host Mike from Patient Boost.
Woohoo! Hey Hazel.
It's so long since we've been on a podcast together. It's like besties.
Yes.
So Mike, you're joining us today to talk to us all about email marketing for dental practices. So email is probably, one of the scariest things for dental practices to any business to implement, and you've got to do it consistently. You've got to do it good quality. So come on, you can hit me with all of your email tips.
Maybe not all of them, because I think it would be probably a too long podcast. But I have prepared something for today that I'm hoping is going to be like an eye opener. And actually, the great thing about this is what I share with you is actually an actionable thing you can do in your practice. So we're not just talking theory today. I'm actually going to share my screen. So you might have to jump over to YouTube and watch this replay, but I'm hoping that we can kind of share at least the process and the psychology and that of what I'm about to show you on the podcast. But yeah, so exciting. But before I do that, Hazel, isn't this great? I just love the fact it's me and you hanging out.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so you mentioned email. So email is one of the most effective marketing channels out there. Like, I think for every $1 invested in email, on average, generates $44 in income or revenue.
That's
Like, it's insane.
amazing statistics.
Yeah, obviously that's not everyone is going to get that. Obviously, like I said, that's an average. So obviously, some people less, some people more. But it's one of those email those channels let's be honest, it's not as sexy as social media.
No, it's not.
but it's like, people think our emails are, we're all used to getting emails in our inbox. But the stat doesn't lie. It is effective. We look at our emails every day. Like, Hazel, how many times do you look at your inbox?
Oh, I'm much better these days. So before I went away on holiday, I literally lived in my inbox, and then I had like a huge realization that actually that's probably not the most efficient way for me to work. So now I'm in it 2 hours a day at the start of the shift and the end of my day, and that's it. And the same for my WhatsApp. But I'm focused, like the time is focused. So like I have the time to read the emails rather than like, I'll do that later, and then you read it and forget it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I just want to come back to this. So social media isn't email marketing isn't as sexy as social media. We get that, we know that, but I think email marketing, you need to build your list. So like the people who your email address is on your list, because we've seen more recently, regularly, WhatsApp will go down, Instagram will go down, and I think Instagram went down for an entire day, and people lost their minds. Whereas emails, they don't generally go down.
No, true, absolutely true. And I think, as obviously we're both marketers, and I think, we're the first ones to tell you that, you to be effective in marketing, you need to kind of cover all the angles. So you need a website, you need social media, you need email marketing. The great thing about email is that, yes, you've got to use the software to send emails. But at the end of the day, you're more in control of email. So, if your website goes down, it's kind of out your control. Facebook makes a nasty algorithm change, and it's like, you're kind of held hostage a little bit. But, if you're working with someone like Hazel, she's ahead of the game anyway, so it's all good. But with email, like if you've got a list, and obviously as a dental practice, they generally have a massive list of patients already. Now, obviously, as kind of systems and stuff have evolved inside a dental practice, you are trying to collect an email address. Not every patient will have an email address, but I do think these days, especially for like appointment confirmations and recall emails, practices are getting better at collecting them. But you have a giant list already. I just think, like we talked about, like many just don't email patients. They typically don't know what to send or when to send it, or if they're allowed to send it, and stuff like that.
that's really interesting as well. So, I get emails, you get emails probably from your dentist, and even like my optician, they send me emails to say like, Jasmine needs her eye testing. So, but I think a lot of practices or a lot of businesses, it comes under that GDPR scare tactic. Like, can I email this list? What happens if I'm wrong and I'm not allowed to? What can I say? What can't I say? So I think, do you think that's the reason why practices just email for recalls and that's it? They don't do anything else?
Yeah, potentially. There's obviously that kind of, they don't want to get on the wrong side of regulations. Dentists are always worried about like the GDC, but more from a clinical perspective. But no, I think that is a very good point. From our side, and it kind of applies not only to dental practices, but other businesses in general. If someone is a customer, or obviously in a dental practice's case, a patient, they've paid for a service, they paid for a treatment, they are a customer. Like, we believe that you're well within your reason to follow up with them, to communicate with them via email, especially if you do it in a way that's not like, buy this, which we would never encourage. But what I'm going to show you in a second, Hazel, is, like I said, what we talked about, like most practices only do recalls, or they will only email patients when it's time to recall them. What we find, and let me know if this resonates with you, but when you get that email from a dental practice saying your appointment's due, it feels like that. I know they've got, it's a healthcare situation, and they want to do well by me, but it kind of sounds like they need my money.
No, I don't think that at all.
Do you
not?
not?
Doesn't resonate. Not at all. And if anything, actually, I'm probably, as a marketeer, probably the worst person, because I am like, my husband goes crazy. He's like, Hazel, you just like, someone just needs to say something, you just buy it, and you're so sucked in by like the marketing, and I'm like, I can't help it. But no, I don't think that at all. So when like the opticians obviously emailed me and Jazz to say like, your eye test is due. So now I'm like looking at my glasses going, oh, I don't like you anymore. I need new ones. Like my dentist emails me for a recall, like, oh yeah, I need to go for a hygiene. And it's like, so it does work.
Fair. So you're obviously, so we have spoken to people where it's like, especially in today's economy, the cost of living crisis, not everyone can always afford dental care, but they need it. They are often seeing dentists pull up in Porsches and flashy cars. So sometimes, and obviously this doesn't apply to everyone, when they get that recall email and they haven't heard from the dentist for like 6 months, 6 to 12 months, some people might feel a bit begrudged by that, and they might feel a bit like, oh, you just need my money right now. Like
I said, it's not you. Holiday.
You just need a new holiday. Exactly. So the great thing about email, and I will mention this every time you talk to me about email, is that it's just a great way to kind of keep in touch with your patients in between appointments. So the same way that, social media updates patients, if they're following the practice, can update them like, what's going on in the practice. Email is similar. So we can actually, try and nurture a relationship with that patient in between, them being in the chair. I think that's great, because obviously when you're seeing a dentist is seeing, tens, hundreds of patients per week. They've only got like a short amount of time to build a relationship. So why not, add in some extra touch points in between like their 6-month, 12-month checkup, to kind of like solidify that relationship, kind of keep the practice top of mind, and so on.
Okay, so you piqued my interest. Great job. But what kinds of things do you recommend practices email out beyond the recalls? So is it, special offers? Is it like an educational piece? Is it a community piece around, what the practice is doing in the community? Like, what is it that you recommend them to send?
Yeah, all great options. And I think I will probably touch on this in future episodes, but that's a nice segue into what I'm about to share. So, like we said, most dental practices don't currently send emails outside of like confirmations and like recalls. So they've probably never done this before. So what I'm going to do is
Sorry, so we call those like transactional emails.
Correct. Yeah. So emails, so transactional emails are those emails. If you think about it from an online retailer perspective, it's the emails you get to confirm that your order has gone through. It's the emails that you get like to confirm delivery. So they're the emails that you kind of need to deliver to customers and patients in order to like deliver the service. So they're that's why we call them transactional. Great spot. So I'm now going to show kind of share a template. I'm going to include like the settings and stuff that you can send. I'm not going to get too much into like the platforms themselves because a dental practice might use different platforms. Maybe that's something that we do in another podcast or in some training elsewhere. But if you've dabbled with maybe something like MailChimp or MailerLite or one of these other platforms, there are probably hundreds of these platforms out there. If you've dabbled with one, or you can at least get to a point where you've set one up. Obviously, if you go to, we can give some examples in the show notes, Hazel. But kind of get to a point where you're kind of ready to send emails, but you're not really sure what to send. I'm going to share like you can send this first email, and it's great because it's kind of, yes, it's under the email marketing kind of umbrella, but it's written in a way that's kind of more of a like a customer service email, or a kind of customer or patient service email. So it's kind of, we're not saying like buy this. We're actually just asking a nice open-ended question and then just trying to get engagement. So I'm going to share my screen. Yep, go ahead.
I was going to say, so it's probably worth sharing at this point for practices that have never done email marketing. We're not sending emails from your Gmail or Outlook or practice email address. Someone doesn't have to sit there and manually type in email addresses or copy and paste from a spreadsheet and doing it that way. We're using a specific or a licensed platform, whether that's from the system you've got that you use in the practice or a third-party provider, because it allows you to track the data and it keeps you compliant with GDPR, so patients can opt out and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for picking that up. So we're not talking about like say Hazel said, sending emails from your personal Gmail account. That would get rather complicated and difficult and time consuming, messy, absolutely messy. We would always recommend like a third party like email provider versus using like your practice management system. We want to keep those, your Dentallys, your software of excellences, your Dentrixes. We want to keep them for your transactional emails. So make sure that patients get their reminders and their confirmations. So yeah, this is for a third party. So I'm now going to bring up my screen, and Hazel, feel free to ask questions as I go through this.
I will.
I'm gonna add it to the stage. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. So you are going to want to probably go on the YouTube channel to watch this. I'm just going to zoom in for everyone who's on YouTube. For people listening, I'm going to do as good a job as possible at kind of explaining this in detail so you can kind of get the grasp. So I've opened a document, and actually I'll include this document inside the show notes. But we're now looking at a document that says how to book more appointments from your existing patient list, even if you've never emailed them. So this is like, even if you're doing a newsletter every month, if you're doing nothing at all, this is great for any situation. So I'm just going to run through the send settings. So these are the settings that we kind of, outside of writing the email, these are the settings that we give the service platform or the email platform to kind of let them know what we want to do with this particular email. So we're going to start sending this email on a Monday. So Monday is statistically shown to be one of the best days to send an email. We're also going to send it around midday, so about 12:15 local time. So wherever you are in the world, whether in the US or the UK, try and send this email out to patients at around 12:15. The reason we do that is we want to catch them at lunchtime. So, during lunch, most people will, open their phone. Obviously, if they can't access their phone during their like work hours, they'll probably flip their phone open, probably check their email during like their lunch break. And we want to make sure that our email is at the top of their inbox so that it's like there and ready to go.
That's really interesting. I'm so sorry to kind of jump in, because whenever I've done email marketing before, I've always done it like 6 a.m. So you're at the top of their email list, as they're on their commute to work, or if they've just got into work. I've never actually tested it at 12 o'clock. So I think when I'm doing mine, the next few, I'm going to test it at 12 and see what the difference is. I shall report back.
Fantastic. Actually, I think that's a great point to make. Like, you kind of, you whether you send it at lunch, and I think it's probably good. Yeah, I think we'll both do some testing around that then, just to make sure it's right. But whether it's at lunch or in the evening, you want to send it at a time that they're most likely to be, on their phone. Most people aren't usually, on their phone during like 9 till 12 or whatever, or like 1 till 4, whatever it is. Hazel, I guess from a social media perspective, it's all about getting them when they're kind of scrolling, they're in their downtime, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Fantastic. So yeah, so for now, we're going to stick with like midday. Again, this is great because obviously it means that they can still phone the practice like after they've got the email. Obviously, unless you're open late or you have like a rollover service, if they phone the practice in the evening, then they're likely to get through to your voicemail. We're then going to actually send the email. So rather than just sending it from like the practice in general, we're actually going to specify the dentist. Now, I'm not going to complicate it right now, but I would suggest actually getting that patients receive the email from their specific dentist if that's possible. But for the simplicity, the dentist name in this instance can just be like the owner of the practice, so the principal dentist, and then some sort of like separator. So we've just got a horizontal line, practice name. So the from name is what you generally see. So if you use Gmail or Yahoo or whatever it is, it's generally the first thing you see on the left-hand side of your inbox. So it's we want to make sure it stands out. People are more likely to open something that's come from a person rather than just a brand. So dentist name, especially putting doctor, obviously doctor full name, as you probably would anyway, doing that will really make it stand out, which is good. And then in terms of who you send this to, so we're not going to send it to everyone. So we're not going to send it to, the thousands and thousands of patients you have in your patient list. There's a couple of reasons for that. If we did that and got a reply from, hundreds, maybe thousands of patients, your team would be really overwhelmed. So we're going to do it in a staggered way. Because can you imagine, Hazel, like you send out an email to 5,000 patients and then like, a couple of hundred people like, yeah, I want this or whatever. It would be carnage. It'd be the same it'd be the same if the practice suddenly got like a couple of hundred like DMs in their like Instagram. Like it'd just be chaotic. So we're going to do it like in segments or batches. So basically, we want to look at patients that have been to the practice within the last 3 to 12 months. Now it can be if they have or haven't got an appointment, but ideally they haven't got an appointment because obviously there's an opportunity to get them back into the practice. So anyone that's been in the practice for 3 to 12 months but hasn't got a next appointment booked is an ideal target. Anyone over the age of 18. I have to say this because we've had a couple of situations where we've emailed a patient that happens to be actually a child. But obviously, we're not emailing them; we're emailing their parent. So it's not like we're emailing a child, but it just makes more sense to obviously email like an adult over the age of 18 is typically a good starting point. So that's that. And actually, just going back to that, the child. Or the parent reported back that the child loved the fact that they were getting emails addressed to them. So it wasn't a bad thing. So it wasn't a nightmare or anything like that.
Just wait until you grow up and then you get emails all of the time.
Yeah. So I think for them it was a bit of a novelty, and they quite enjoyed that. So that's quite cool.
Can I just jump in with a question?
Of course.
So this obviously, emailing patients over the age of 18, you're going to have to do some screening of the data that you import into your third-party email platform. So do you have any tips on how to do that?
Perfect. So great question. So within most or pretty much all practice management softwares, there are ways to download reports. So in most systems, they are referred to as reports. if you're using a system that doesn't refer to reports, it might be, lists or whatever it is. That is a great place to kind of to get this data. So you can go into that, you can create a list based on, make sure that they've got their first name, their last name, their email address. You can actually sort it and filter it by, last appointment date, next appointment date, age, dentist. There's a whole host of features. People like the practice manager, the maybe even like the treatment coordinator, they are usually quite well versed in kind of pulling up reports. And when you export reports, all the data that you have in that report can get then re-uploaded to your third-party email platform. So that's a great question.
And I have another great question as well.
Ooh.
So you say to email patients who have been in the practice within the last 3 to 12 months but don't have a next appointment booked. Would you go one step further in your segmentation and target patients that maybe in a 10 to 12 month bracket, 8 to 10 month bracket, and do it that way? Because is there an optimum time or an optimum length of time since they've had an appointment that you see them more easily to convert?
So we typically find if they've been in the practice more recently, so more than 3, 4, 5 months, because they've just been in. We all know that in an ideal situation, when someone has finished with their appointment, they go back to the front desk, they get booked in straight away. So there shouldn't really be a need for this, but we all know that, some patients are a bit elusive. They don't like committing to 6, 12 months time. Sometimes the front receptionist will forget to ask them, not always, things happen. So ideally this shouldn't really exist. Sorry. But yeah, so what I'm going to suggest is you start from 3 months out. And then as you can see in a second, we're actually going to suggest that you only email about 150 patients per week. So like I said, we're not going to try and email them like everyone at once, because that would be carnage. So start from 3 months out. And then we're going to basically go 150 patients the first Monday. The second Monday, it might be the next 150. And they'll go from 3 months to 4 months to 5 months and sort of work back. That's what we found the most, which is quite interesting. Yeah. Hopefully that helps.
That's okay. No, it does help. So I suppose the practice, they'll, as soon as they start to do it and do it regularly, they'll get data. So they'll say, right, okay, we're more likely, we'll get a higher conversion rate for patients that have not been with us in the last 6 months, because they know, subconsciously they've got to book an appointment. So the conversion rate will generally be a lot higher than those patients that have not engaged with us for 12 months, because they're obviously, there's a reason why they haven't engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the whole point here is, most practices will wait until, obviously, say someone comes into practice and then their normal recall schedule is 12 months. Most practices, most systems won't send out that recall until a few weeks before that appointment. So we're looking at, 11 months since they've been in the practice. The idea of this is obviously to get in a bit earlier, try and get them booked in. Why do we need to wait 12 months before booking someone in again? Why not try to get them in sooner? Because if you leave it until the 12-month mark to get them booked in, that might mean that they don't book in for 13 or 14 months since their last appointment, and you're missing out on more regular payments from that patient, or more regular checkups. And obviously that's not great for their oral health either. That extra 2 months of not seeing a dentist might mean the difference between a faulty, a tooth being extracted or not. So yeah, there's the benefits to both the patient and the practice.
Yeah.
And then, so that covers the settings. So again, if you're listening to this on the podcast, jump over to the YouTube channel, and so you can see this visually. And then I'm just going to try and jump into the template. So Hazel, can you see my screen?
I can.
Fantastic. So this is the template. And again, we've kept this very simple. And like I said at the start, this isn't really an overly actually, it's not a salesy email at all. So this is a very much almost just a very casual kind of just check in from the dentist to the patient in a way that seems like you care, and you're actually you really want to hear from the patient. And we've had so many replies from patients through working with our clients that most of the time, even if they have an appointment booked, or they've just recently booked one or been in the practice recently, they just love the fact that the practice is actually reaching out to them and actually like showing that they care. Because again, we talked about the fact that they only really hear from a practice like when it's time to book an appointment or reminders. There's no like in between usually. So honestly, there's some of the reactions is like, oh, I'm so it's so nice to hear from you. Thank you so much for reaching out to it means a lot that you care. So that's been really nice, and I think that our clients that we work with have really liked like hearing and seeing that from patients and seeing the positive reaction. I don't think we've ever had a negative reaction from a patient so far. So we've sent thousands of emails. Most of the time, you're not going to get a reply from everyone. Like the chances of getting a reply are lower than they are higher.
Yeah.
But when people do reply, they do really appreciate it. And even those you'll see here that we're not actually asking them to book an appointment, a lot of them are like, oh no, thank you so much for reminding me I need to book an appointment, which is the beauty of this campaign. So the campaign subject line. So this is the that almost that first thing you see when you're in your inbox is check in with the patient first name. So within these platforms, so once you've uploaded your data from your PMS, a lot of these platforms will use what they call variable fields. So you'll be able to use bits of information from your contact list inside the email to make it personalized. So there's no point in saying check in with patient, because that's obviously not very personal and very generic. But we want to grab their attention, check in with their name. Obviously, if you see something with your name in it, you're going to open it.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, absolutely.
Yeah, so you're going to go beyond. You're going to think, oh, that's it says my name or whatever it is. So I'm going to go in there, open that. So we're increasing the likelihood of them opening that email, which is what is the first challenge basically. We're then going to, like I said, keep this email very simple and very short and to the point. So we basically say, hi, patient first name. It's dentist name here from practice name. So I appreciate this sounds a bit funny. I will give you a proper example in a second. But the only real thing we're asking here is just wanted to check in and see if there's anything we can do for you right now. Like we're not saying, book an appointment. It's very different from a normal recall email. We're not saying buy my Invisalign. We're just saying checking in with you. What can we do with you right now? What can we do to help? Like it's that simple. That's why it's such a great email to send first time round. It's not like they're suddenly getting loads of marketing emails if they've never had an email from you before. But we're keeping it nice and open. That hopefully increases engagement. And then at the bottom, we're just saying email back, and me and my team will reply. So we learned this quite quickly. Is we did actually say reply personally, and patients did reply back with some quite open and quite detailed, quite graphic responses, because they obviously thought the dentist was emailing put directly. So we've kind of just included that so that if someone does reply and your team replies instead of you, we're kind of covering that angle, and the patient won't get super upset about that. So that's all good. Mm-hmm. We then have just a picture of the dentist, so a small sort of profile picture, just to kind of remember them or make it a bit personal. And then a super simple signature, so the dentist name, dentist position role, and I'll explain that in a second. And then just a link to the practice website to kind of reconfirm that it has come from the dentist.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then obviously to make sure that we're compliant, we do have an unsubscribe link. So at the bottom, so a couple of spaces after the signature, we have don't want regular tips on your product service. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like in a second. So we're basically giving them we're letting them unsubscribe, but we want to disincentivize them from unsubscribing. So we want to give them a reason to not unsubscribe. Yeah, to stay, exactly. So we're going to give them a reason to stay. The benefit of staying is this. Are you sure you want to go? So they have, but obviously make sure that the unsubscribe link is there. It's good. And because we are using a third-party email marketing software versus the PMS, we're just going to give them a note that important. Unsubscribing will not impact your appointment confirmations or reminders. So because it's a separate system, obviously if they unsubscribe from this particular system, they are still going to get those reminders. So they're not going to like not show up and increase your no-show rate. So that's that.
Yeah, so I was going to say, and this comes back to, this is a marketing email, even though it's not overtly like buy my stuff, but it's the appointment ones, the transactional emails, so you have to send them. So I think there are software like patient management softwares out there that allow you to do marketing emails, and then you can set preferences within it anyway.
Yeah, correct. So if you decided to use your PMS, you can actually, have like a, update my preferences, and it can kind of remove them from marketing emails, which obviously this would, they wouldn't get similar emails like this, but they would continue to get those transactional emails. Yeah, great point, Hazel. So finally, just to kind of wrap this up, I'm going to share an example of that email. And Hazel, I've used an example of someone that we know. So I hope he doesn't mind me using him. So as you can see on screen, I have used an example from Dr. Carl Walker-Finch over at Smiles in Tandem. So we've actually been running these emails for him. It's been really good. He's also been on the podcast a few times. So I thought, he's a friend of the podcast. He won't mind me sharing his face.
He won't mind. And I'll make sure I tag him on social media.
So this is now, I've taken the template. I've put the information in from an actual practice. So it makes more sense now. So the subject line would be check in with Mike. So this email has come from the practice to me. Hi, Mike. It's Dr. Carl Walker-Finch here from Smiles in Tandem. Just wanted to check in and see if there is anything we can do for you right now. Email back, and me and my team will reply. Then there's a little picture of Carl, and then his details, Dr. Carl Walker-Finch, principal dentist, smilesintandem.com. So if you're not the principal dentist, just put dentist. If you want to send it from your TCO, just give them, just to explain their role and their position within the business. And then finally, as I scroll down here, you'll get an example of what I meant by the kind of pure service product. So the unsubscribe here is preceded by don't want regular tips on maintaining a beautiful, healthy smile, ? Unsubscribe here. So we're kind of giving that reason to stick around, because obviously moving forward, there will be emails about kind of oral health and smiles and that kind of thing. But we're giving them a reason there. So yeah, that's it. Hazel, any questions?
So this is technically a reactivation email, isn't
Correct.
it? So you're like reactivating your list because you've never communicated with them on this type before. So it's an opportunity for patients to express their satisfaction in replying back, or setting their preferences by unsubscribing, so that when you're emailing to people who want to receive your emails.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, so like I said, so like you said, it's a way for us to reawaken the patients that we've got, or at least get them used to the idea of getting emails from us. Like I said, this is a great one to send. It's pretty, it's not offensive. Most people aren't going to be offended by the idea of getting an email from their dentist saying, how can we help you? Which I think is why it works so well. But it does, it eases them in. And obviously moving forward, you can then, you might decide to send weekly or monthly emails. And that's something that we'll cover in another session, I think, Hazel. But yeah, so that's it. That's it, guys. If you are, looking to increase patient appointments from your existing patient list, this is a great first email to send. It's actually part of a slightly longer sequence. We have like a 3-part kind of reactivation sequence for dentists, which includes a text and an email. But for the purposes of this podcast, this is a great starting point, and I didn't want to bite your ear off for an hour.
Oh, I'd love to sit and chat emails for an hour, but I don't think everyone else would. So
yeah, so I thought we could break it up. Next time I might mention, we'll send like a similar thing via SMS, because not everyone responds to email in the same way. And I think, Hazel, as you know, SMS is quite an effective and fast-growing marketing channel. But that's a different day. Yeah,
it's a marketing channel for another podcast.
Absolutely. But no, thank you, guys. Thank you for listening to that. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I will actually include a link to that script or Google Doc in the show notes, and maybe even suggest some of the email marketing platforms that you can use in your practice.
Amazing.
Brilliant. Right, guys. So from the two of us, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on another podcast soon.
Thank you.
Bye.